So, our teaching today is the beginning of the last book of Devarim. And I'm going to focus on setting the 5 verses that set the scene. These are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan. Let's stop a moment. He said, all Israel, the whole Israel. That is a change because until now, the Israelites, learning from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the Israelites had been described as B'nai is Yisrael, the children of Israel. And now, for the first time, they're no longer the children. They are simply Israel. And what does it signify? It means that the Israelites are about to become something that they had not been before. Until now, they had been linked vertically by biological descent. They had a common ancestor, Jacob, who was given the name Israel, and they were his descendants. They were part of the same family tree, and they were his children. With the subtle shift from B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, to Yisrael, Moses was preparing the Israelites for a new mode of existence. Now they would be linked horizontally to one another. They were no longer children. They were about to become moral adults. Their unity was no longer simply a matter of a common past. They were going to shape a shared future. They would no longer exist in a state of dependency, relying on Moses and through him, God, to provide for their needs, welfare, and safety. Henceforth, they would have to take responsibility for one another. It's also clear, we know from last week and the weeks before, Moses is in his last month of life. He is deprived by God of his great wish, which is to go into the land of Israel, but he has had to appoint Joshua to lead the people to go into the promised land. Rabbi Sachs reiterates that they were about to become not just individuals in a new land, but a people. So let's go back to the text. And he recounts how they're in the wilderness. And it is the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, that Moses addressed the Israelites in accordance with the instructions that the Lord had given him for them. And it's no longer God addressing him or addressing the nation, and he shares what God teaches he is about to teach himself. After he had defeated the king on the other side of the Jordan in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expound this teaching. So the question becomes expound. Rabbi Jonathan speaks about, and he and also Rabbi Sachs and many others speak about how is it that Devarim, that means words, and it's Moses' words, that when he, decades earlier, was at the burning bush, he could only respond, Bi Adonai la'ish Devarim anuki. Please, my Lord, I'm not a man of words. Not now, not ever. I'm heavy of speech and heavy of tongue. That's from Exodus 4. But now we have this transformation. This whole chapter going forward will be Moses' words, a series, so to speak, of sermons to the people to remind them of their story, of the history that they shared in those 40 years. So many have died off that the remaining generation may need to be reminded of what he, as their leader, who is now becoming their teacher, distilling his view backwards of what their journey was so that they can prepare for an enlightened future, remembering the lessons that were learned so hard as they create their future as a new people. So how did he find his voice for this transformation from the mumbler? I remember Reb Zalman calling him a mumbler, anyone with a stutter. So the Sfat Emet, Rabbi Yehuda Lieb Alter of Ger, points us to the double meaning of the word be'ir in the verse recited above. Hoil Moshe be'ir et haTorah hazot. The plain meaning of the verse, this is from Rabbi Jonathan, is Moses undertook to explain this Torah. The verb be'ir means explain, expound, elucidate. But the noun be'ir means well. Thus, a creative alternative meaning dances in the background. Moses undertook to well up this Torah. And Rabbi Jonathan speaks about how it is we well up. There are two approaches to water being available to us in life. One is to have a cistern, a holding tank, a bore, not a be'ir, but a bore. But a cistern is a closed system. And once its contents have been emptied, it is dry. It does not refill from within or below, but only at the whims of the unpredictable rain. But a well is an open system, tapping into a rechargeable, invisible, ever-flowing source. A good well brims over and never runs dry. Therefore, if a person thinks of herself as a cistern, she mistakenly thinks that inspiration is a product of her own self and a limited resource. The well springs of creativity will not replenish in this person. But if you're well, there is the source of tapping in to the wellspring, to nature, to the flow of life. And when Moses stammers, I am slow of speech and slow of tongue, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh replies, who gives human speech? Now, go and I will be with you in your mouth and will teach you what to say. And thus we say, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable. That's, from the Psalms. And so for 40 years, Moses has learned to have God speak through him. And now it is for him in Devarim to find the words to explain and tell, as was said, to explain, expound, and elucidate. And in the following sections of Devarim, well, first we have Tisha B'Av. This is the portion that is always read before Tisha B'Av. Then Moses tells the stories of leaving Sinai, of all the stops along the way, all the fighting and the wars and the battles and the loss of people, sending the spies. All of that gets explained in his stories. But I want to go back to the word expound, explain, expound, and elucidate. In the Mishnah, there's a teaching about expounding being that Moses gave 70 translations. And what does that mean? 70 translations. Wasn't Hebrew enough, or Hebrew and maybe Egyptian. How many languages did the people need going forward? There's train of thinking that, well, the Torah needed to be made available to the non-Jews, that we could be the light of the world, and others needed the language. So they needed the Torah and the lessons that we have. 70 languages, 70 facets. I'm trying to 70 phones, 70 things on Google. But this is what we do for each other. If you think about 70 iterations, we find a way to go into the material and make a new teaching. I wanted to share from, this is from Chabad teaching, that Midrash, in terms of translation, that translation can be interpretation. And there was an interview with Robert Alter, who makes the point of every great work of literature, and there's much great writing in the biblical Hebrew, has a mastery of means in its own language. It's not only the kind of perfect word search and subtle shifts from one level of the language to another, but also the rhythms, the lengths of words, etc. When you're translating, you can't possibly get all of those, while all the different features come together in perfect harmony in the original language. In most cases, you decide what's less important and you sacrifice something. Maybe you don't focus on the order of the words in order to achieve some other effect of the original that's important. Maybe I can get the rhythm of the language, but not quite the English equivalents that have the exact, or the Hebrew equivalents that have the exact same resonance as the original. And it said multiple translations might do a better job at capturing the nuance. And that brings me to the multiple iterations that we give each other. I was struck this past week, a number of us received an email from Miriam asking that anyone born with a birthday in August participate creating Kiddush for our upcoming Saturday Shabbat service. And she recounted what it had been like through our recent years, the effect of our journey through COVID and our journey online with each other, and then coming back together bit by bit. The loss of the school for children. And I think of that, of the teachers of our children, and how important teachers are in our tradition. And here we are with a new rabbi and new teaching to come to us. So it feels very special that those of us who celebrate rebirth or the celebration that we were born to be alive at this time and are still alive at this time can gather and celebrate this new beginning as we cross over into a new place. So that our story was recounted, I thought of Moses as recounting his story, and that as 76 feels just different to me. And it's time for me to get my story in order for my son and for my nieces and nephews. There's things I want to share. And so it's a little, okay, Moses needed to do it because he knew it was important for the next generation and the generations after that to know. And what was this thing with 70 translations? Did he understand what was coming? I mean, we have Tisha B'Av coming. Did he know? Did he, in his vision? I mean, there are numerous, even Rabbi Sachs says, we have the destruction of the temple, a new way of going forward without sacrifice, and certain parts of the the I would say clergy because I'm searching for the word, but the leaders, they weren't the leaders anymore. It was people who could read the Torah, and they were teaching, and the words are what have carried us forth. Not having the temple, or even though we will grieve it and mourn and have lamentation, but and we had periods when we were in exile. Did Moses know we needed 70 languages or more than 70 languages to keep the words close in our mouth? I want to share this, that then this will be my close. When all the words, Devarim, often wrongly translated as things, but when the blessings and the curses I have set before you come upon you, and you take them to heart wherever the Lord your God disperses you among the nations, and when you and your children return to the Lord your God and obey him with all your heart and all your soul, according to everything I command you today, then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all the nations where he scattered you, even if you have been banished to the most distant land under the heavens. From there, the Lord your God will gather you and bring you back. Israel survived, Rabbi Sachs says, because it never lost Devarim. It never lost the words which bound it to God and God to it. And that was the basis of its survival in exile. Those words were never rescinded, hence Israel never lost the promise of return. Words proved more powerful than power, more lasting than land. The word lives and gives life to the people who dedicated their life to the word. And so I just want to honor this group that delve into the words. I want to honor Abigail, and Karen's understanding of gematria, that can take apart the words in ways and on levels that I appreciate, but don't have the expertise. And I want to wish us all a fruitful journey as we enter this a new journey.